Kilimanjaro is one of those mountains in the world that just, it has it all. It's very unusual in terms of it's alpine, but it's also Africa. So you have all these different environments, rainforest, which is very common to Africa. You've got a savanna, you've even got desert, but then you have glaciers, and then you have an alpine environment. So it's a very unique place in the world that merges mountain culture with African vibes, and that's something that you just don't find anywhere else. What I love about this place is that anybody can do it. It's 5,895 meters, so it's a huge achievement and a serious challenge. But the only prerequisite to climbing Kilimanjaro is to be able to walk unassisted with a light backpack and to want it. So Ahmed joined our first trip in March 2018. He was into it, but as the days progressed, we started to see Ahmed starting to get a little bit more nervous. He was getting a little weaker, you could see it. And this was partly because he wasn't eating. Actually, it was mostly because he wasn't eating.
A lot happened actually. There's a lot that happened in the first experience. It was a mix of everything. But what happened to me is that and on day 4, Lava Tower, the physical challenge combined with some mental block was really like a barrier. And I was like very, very tired. The altitude, of course, got really into my mind, and loss of appetite, nausea, vomiting, all those kind of things.
When you're climbing Kilimanjaro, one of the most important things is to eat. As you go higher into altitude, your appetite becomes less and less, and it becomes a vicious cycle because the less you eat, the worse you feel, the less you want to eat, and then eventually it spirals down into not being able to make it. And that happened with Ahmed.
That was the night that I decided that that's it for me. I don't think I will be able to do it. I was extremely tired and I just wanted to put it on a table and deal with it.
He looked at the group and he said, guys, you know, I don't think I'm gonna go to the summit. And it's always difficult to hear that, but it's also super important to understand that, you know, the summit isn't a physical place. For some people, it is wherever it is. And Ahmed felt like this was as far as he was willing to go, and that was something that the whole team respected.
I didn't expect the reaction of the group. It was a very emotional moment. Everybody was like supportive, but not pushy. I went back to my tent. I think it was the first time to sleep. I had a good sleep. I wake up, I felt better. I said, okay, what do I do now? Do I go down alone? Why? Why don't we just try to go to the next camp?
The night that he told us he wasn't coming, he'd eaten. Properly, actually. So the next morning he looked good, and he asked if it was okay if he joined us to continue up to the summit base camp at Barafu, which I said, yeah, sure.
Then I went to the next camp. Then we decided, like, okay, let me give it another push and so on. With all those things, I just found out myself up in the summit.
It was not easy, but Ahmed was walking at the front. He was at the front of the group, and I don't remember him that night. The only thing I remember was asking when we got to the summit, you know, where is Ahmed? And he was there, and no problems whatsoever.
Where's Ahmed?
It was like 3-4 months after our first Kilimanjaro experience. Ahmed called me, basically, and he said, I want to come back to Kilimanjaro, and I want to bring my boys, and if that's something that I would be able to do.
It was part of a commitment I made, I have to say. My boy is now getting into teenagers and all this, and I wanted to have this common thing that we do together. So we started doing some activities together that wouldn't be boring for them, and there's a good platform for us to spend some quality time together.
So I said, yeah, that would be awesome. Maybe someday we'd get together and we could do something like that. And I for one really appreciate shared experiences with family members. It's something that I feel very strongly about because it's something I shared with my father when I was younger.
Well, we originally wanted to come to Kilimanjaro because my dad did it previously in March. But then my brother had a school project coming up and we thought this would be a perfect way to bring life to the project.
It's basically a project where you choose whatever you want to do, and I like the outdoors, and they said it could be as simple as building a robot to climbing a mountain. So it just clicked in our head and we decided to come.
9 months since from when Ahmed left the mountain, we were back at the base of Kilimanjaro for round 2.
What are you seeing?
Baby monkey. So far, it's pretty exciting because it's the first time I'm in Tanzania itself, and first time I see the mountain up close like this.
I'm hoping it doesn't rain too much. That's it, but feels good. I think the weather will be nice, won't be too cold.
When we walked through the rainforest, that experience was pretty tough. The first day was definitely we were still learning different things and different ways to walk, how to pace ourselves.
I've never been in a rainforest before, so it was my first experience. It was pretty cool. It was raining pretty heavy, and right before it started raining. The terrain was different. Walking on the mud and soil was different to walking on the rocks. I'm surprised that I'm still not there.
Yeah, were you expecting it to be shorter?
Yeah.
Yeah? How are your legs?
In pain.
How come?
Just not used to walking for this long.
I felt like the trees were kind of overshadowing us and protecting us kind of.
The rainforest is pretty awesome because in the very early mornings, the clouds start to form and it creates this mystical feel as you're walking. It's always it's a bit foggy, it's a bit misty. It kind of feels like Jurassic Park.
The landscape of that camp in particular was special. I liked that camp the most. It wasn't a dry camp and all our stuff was soaking. But we just had to go on with it. Luckily, my sleeping bag was dry.
Never slept in a tent before, right on ground. The humidity inside the tent caused water to fall on us. I found it to be very difficult to sleep in all the camps, even if it's low altitude or high altitude.
That was the cold day. That was a really cold, rainy day. When my hands were freezing, I could barely move them. Our stuff was also soaking wet. I was soaking wet.
We got out of the rainforest that day, and we started walking on rocks, stuff like that. It felt very different than on the soil, because on the soil you can still put your feet down and you won't slip. I fell a few times because I'm not used to it.
It was a short but a really hard day because we were going mostly uphill and it was very technical.
Rain is probably the most common thing that we have on Kilimanjaro. The biggest issue is that no matter what happens, no matter what you're wearing, even if it says Gore-Tex, even if it says, no matter what label it has on it, it's eventually, water goes through material. It's just uncomfortable.
When we arrived at camp, I just put my hands in hot water. That was the first view, actual view we saw of the whole trip. We were trying to make a panorama of us. It was amazing. It was really beautiful.
How was it today?
It's good. I just got a small headache, but I think it's gonna be better.
We know already that Lava Tower or that day especially is a big day.
It was my worst day on the way up because it looked much closer than it actually was. And that's when I started getting into my head and overthinking about it.
It's the first long day, and it takes us into real altitude, so 4,600 meters. That's pretty high up, you know. Just to put it into perspective, the highest mountain in the European Alps is 4,810. So your body feels different. It doesn't react the way you're used to it reacting. Your heart rate goes up very easily. These things are shocking.
At least altitude is altitude, but I think the way that you try to get your body, or to manage your body, I think makes a lot of difference. That's something we didn't know before. So having been through it last time, you get to try to improve some of the things that you did before. Remembering my breaking point, I think we're doing just great.
This is really special for Ahmed because last time he got here was his breaking point. He broke down and he was in very bad shape.
How do I look?
Much better than last time. Much better than last time.
Once we reached Lava Tower, we sat down. We ate a little bit. I didn't eat that much, and then it started hurting more. I had chest pains. I had a huge headache. My throat was sore.
I've never seen him like that. He's never anxious. He always wants to go. Made me feel responsible for him, like you said. Once we went in the tent, I just helped him as much as I could. When we were outside, we gave him words that I might have not said before. We told him that there's no wrong choice if you want to go down. We all understand. It's already a big accomplishment. We made it to 4,600 meters.
I myself, I was trying to hold up as much as I can, to be good, to motivate them. For me, it wasn't crying. It was a very emotional moment, and I just reacted naturally because I think it was a moment of assurance that he needed. He needed to know that it doesn't work like this. You have to know that we are here together. There is no obligation. It was a very special moment that me, Abdullah and Abdurrahman, we all got together. But he did what a good brother is supposed to do at this moment.
Once we reached camp, I laid down. It was terrible.
So this is end of day 3. It was a pretty long day. We did the cross from Shira to Barranco, which is about 9 hours altogether. The guys got their first taste, or the boys got their first taste of real altitude, 4,600 meters at Lava Tower. it was quite tough for them, I think, especially Abdurrahman. Yeah, we'll see what happens tomorrow. See how he wakes up and how he feels. And we'll make our decisions then.
I had chest pains, I had a huge headache, my throat was sore.
I've never seen him like that. He's never anxious. He always wants to go.
When Abdurrahman struggled, that for me was kind of a moment where I understood, that they need a little bit more. They need more reassurance.
My brother and my dad were very supportive. If I made the decision to descend, he would have been very supportive. We decided to sleep on it and then see how I wake up in the morning. And then in the morning, we decided to continue.
So, where are we going today?
We're going to Branco Wall.
You pointed in the wrong direction.
Branco Wall. Branco Wall was my favorite.
I think that was the best day. We used our hands to climb, and I find that really fun. It's the first time we do that, and it was really cool. When we saw it from Karanga camp, it was very steep. It looked very steep, and it was very difficult. But as soon as we started walking up, it felt even easier and easier.
What's happening over there?
He's sleeping.
Is that normal?
Yeah. It's pretty normal.
He just sleeps randomly?
You can kind of hear him snoring too.
It was also a very hot day. Everyone was getting uncomfortable in the clothes because it was really hot. We were walking and we were exposed to the sun.
The clouds were there. You could see them. They were just on the right-hand side as we were walking up, just hovering next to us. And they gave this illusion that we were kind of in the clouds, but we were directly exposed to the sunlight the entire time. And as we were walking up, one thing that I noticed in hindsight, which at the time I didn't pay particular attention to, was the fact that Ahmed, although he was wearing a headband, he wasn't wearing anything that covers his entire head, and he was kind of exposed to the sun the entire time.
Summit night was not the easiest for me. I couldn't sleep. All I could think about was the summit.
It's a tough night. It's not an easy night, and it was much heavier on me when I was with them rather than from when I was alone.
We met in the tent as we normally do for tea and biscuits before we head up to the mountain. It was 11 p.m. Ahmed at that point was already complaining about a headache. My head automatically went to, this is probably just a rehash of a little bit of altitude, a little bit of nerves, and probably that he wasn't eating well. I didn't think about the sun exposure of the day.
Okay. Steve, you see where Steve is?
We started walking gradually with a really good pace.
It was night as well, so we couldn't see anything. The headlamp was the only thing we could use to see. It was getting very hard. It was getting very cold as well. The wall we were going up was very difficult. It was slippery.
I was starting to get a little bit nervous about Ahmed. When we would take our breaks, Ahmed was not doing what he would normally do, and he would just grab his head with his hands and just put his head between his legs. I don't generally administer altitude medication, but at this point my gut was telling me he wasn't going to make it, but he still wanted to push, and we pushed a little bit further.
We continued for a little bit longer until we reached 5,000, and then my dad couldn't continue.
I still remember till this day, because I've been back to that point several times. It's where Ahmed sat down and he just started shouting. And his headache was done. And I remember he looked up at me. So he just kind of, I got to him and he looks up and he was sweating. And at that moment I knew that this was the middle stages of heat stroke, and we needed to get him off the mountain immediately. Heat stroke is when you're directly exposed to the sun, and your body starts to sweat out and lose the minerals that it needs to function properly. And that's when you start to get nauseous, diarrhea is quite common, headaches, dizziness. These are all things associated with heat stroke. Prevention is to stay out of the sun, wear a hat, make sure that your head is not directly exposed. Wherever possible, stay in the shade. It's one of those things as well where if you don't catch it early, it spirals, and you can reach the point where you need a stretcher off the mountain, or worse, even a helicopter.
Steve wanted to take me and my brother up with him, but my dad is more important and one decision for all of us, so we decided to go down with him. Made me feel a little bit worried. I wanted to be there for him just like he was there for me. I didn't want them to feel like we didn't care or that we weren't supporting him, so I stuck by him all the way.
Like there's only one thing that I felt, that regardless of any downsides of it, it's the best option. It's either we are all together or we go down together.
So what? We made it to 5,000, not 5,800. That's our summit. Next time we'll come back and we'll reach 5,800.
Experiences can be repeated, and I will quote you in this, like, the mountain is not going anywhere. I cannot deny that there was a bit of regret that I was not able to go to the summit, but you have seen it yourself. It was beyond a physical push. It, like, getting sick is something that is different.
My only thoughts were like, how is my dad? Is he good? Is he better?
They were very keen on saying no. They want to respect the decision that they took as a family, and their responsibility was first and foremost to their father.
I think we all took the right decision. Extremely proud and very happy with how they reacted to it, and it's giving me another reason to start planning for the next adventure as early as we can.
I always wonder whenever I climb Kilimanjaro, it always jerks a tear. And I always wonder, what is it going to be this time? Sometimes it's a sunrise. Sometimes it's a moment I have between me and myself in the darkness. This time it was watching these boys take a decision that most mature people in the world, 30, 40 years their senior wouldn't take. And that's to turn around when they could very easily have reached the summit. And that was powerful. Yeah.